Last year was hell. Actually, in all seriousness, I was going through a lot of personal turmoil. Faced with enormous stress, I suffered an anxiety attack. On some days, I could do no work. On other days, I just wanted to lay in my bed and cry. My doctor asked if I'd like to speak with a mental health professional about my stress and anxiety. Mental health? I clammed up and violently shook my head in protest. I felt a profound sense of shame. I felt the weight of stigma. Even though I had a loving, supportive family and incredibly loyal friends, I could just not entertain the idea of speaking to anyone about my feelings of pain. As stated by the World Health Organization, 1 in 4 people will be affected by a mental or neurological disorder at some point in their lives. In a quote by Glenn Close, what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. In today's America, if someone were to find out you had a mental illness, they would be afraid of you. Suicide rates are up, and mental health care is at its lowest. Thousands of lives have been lost to a society that built up a stigma against them. From the TED Talks towards a new understanding of mental illness by Thomas Inzel, and There's No Shame in Taking Care of Your Mental Health by Song Goodell, The Poetry Perfect by Maya Mayer, as well as articles from The Healthy Place, The Atlantic, and the American Psychological Association. Silenced by Stigma, a program because this is a serious issue and their voices need to be heard. The mental health system suffers for one reason: stigma. The public does not want to pay for an adequate mental health system. That results in shoestring budgets for a skeleton staff. There's little oversight and accountability because mental health is not a priority. The stigma attached to mental illness makes fighting for better conditions like trying to improve the prison system. No one cares enough to be outraged. The first time I heard mental health, I had just gone through the brutal experience of losing 7 loved ones in the same month. The school nurse, concerned about what I'd gone through, inquired, "Is she mental?" I thought, does she not know? We neither process nor express our emotions. We deal with our problems. Because of those prejudices and misunderstandings, many people are afraid to go public with their illness or seek help. Untreated disorders led to an estimated $417 billion in annual costs related to lost productivity, crime, and health care. When people used the term mental, what came to mind was a madman with dirty, dreadlocked hair bumbling around half-naked on the streets. We all know this man. Our parents warned us of him. Mommy, why is he mad? Drugs. If you even look at drugs, you'll end up just like him. Is there something wrong with you? A loose screw or two that ruined your ability to function? Why are you always so tired, your life uninspired? All you do is sprawl on the couch with outstretched limbs like a sloth in slow motion. Where is your devotion to succeed? Do I have to force feed you discipline until you finally concede? The most recent National Health and Nutrition Survey from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that in 2014, 7.6% of Americans ages 12 and up fit the description for moderate and mild depression. Among people with severe depression, 35% reported seeking help from a mental health professional. Only 20% of those with moderate symptoms sought help, and 13% of those with mild symptoms. The discussion around anxiety and mental health has evolved. But there is still a misunderstanding in common parlance about things like anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. Depression is not just being sad. Anxiety is not just being stressed out. These are true biological disorders that can be quite debilitating. What drives the disability for these disorders like schizophrenia and bipolar and depression? Well, there are probably 3 reasons. One is that they're highly prevalent. About 1 in 5 people will suffer from one of these disorders in the course of their lifetime. A second, of course, is that for some people, these become truly disabling, and it's about 4 to 5%. That's about 1 in 20. But what really drives these numbers, this high morbidity and to some extent the high mortality, is the fact that these start very early in life. 50% will have onset by age 14, 75% by age 24. A picture that is very different with one that we're looking at if you're talking about diabetes or hypertension. Most of the major illnesses that we think about as being sources of morbidity and mortality, these are indeed the chronic disorders of young people. That's precisely the reason we need to speak out. The more we speak out about 3 reasons the mental health system suffers, the more people will become aware of the problems. The more people aware of the problems, the more they'll understand that stigma leads to these conditions, and the more they will accept that mental illness is just a brain disorder and that we deserve treatment just like any other physically ill person. We need to call attention to 3 reasons the mental health system suffers: poorly trained, overworked staff, lack of funding, stigma, in order to change what we cannot accept. We often respond to mental health with distance, ignorance, guilt, fear, and anger. But few cited other known causes of mental illness like genetics, socioeconomic status, conflict, war, the loss of a loved one. The stigmatization against mental illness often results in the ostracizing and demonizing of sufferers. For me, the stigma is personal. In 2009, I received a frantic call in the middle of the night. My best friend in the world, a brilliant, philosophical, hip, charming young man, was diagnosed with schizophrenia. I witnessed some of the friends we'd grown up with recoil. I heard the snickers, I heard the whispers, derogatory, demeaning commentary about his condition, words we would never say about someone with cancer. Somehow, when it comes to mental illness, our ignorance eviscerates all empathy. I stood by his side as his community isolated him, but our love never wavered. Tactically, I became passionate about mental health. I helped found the Mental Health Special Interest Alumni Group at my college. I saw students struggle and unable to speak to anyone. Even with this knowledge and with their stories in tow, I in turn struggled and could not speak to anyone. When I faced my own anxiety, so deep is our fear of being the madman. Over the past 2 decades, people have learned more about mental illness, and most believe treatment is effective. However, the public is now more likely to believe that people with mental illness are dangerous and unpredictable. A result? We suffer in solitude, silenced by stigma. I get up at 5 in the morning every day. I start my day the same way, worried that I'll collapse as my bones start to decay from cleaning up your scraps. Why is your room such a mess? The clothes go in the hamper, Maya, not displayed on your bed like your lack of morals, not littered on the floor, collecting more dust than my withered expectations. In addition to the lack of will to improve things, stigma causes people who speak out to be questioned. As I said to the reporter, it's as if they think that just because we're psych patients means we don't have any idea what's happening to us. Her allegations are not taken seriously, and even when proven true, there is no will to fix things. What I've been talking to you so far about is mental disorders, diseases of the mind. That's actually becoming a rather unpopular term these days, and people feel that, for whatever reason, it's politically better to use the term behavioral disorders, and to talk about these as disorders of behavior. Fair enough. They are disorders of behavior, and they are disorders of the mind, but what I want to suggest to you is that both of those terms, which have been in play for more than a century, actually are now impediments to progress. That what we need conceptually to make progress here is to rethink these disorders as brain disorders. That is precisely what we do when we decide that everybody with one of these brain disorders, brain circuit disorders, has a behavioral disorder. We wait until the behavior becomes manifest. That's not early detection, and that's not early intervention. We need to realize that our mental struggles do not detract from our virility, nor does our trauma taint our strength. We need to see mental health as important as physical health. We need to stop suffering in silence. We need to stop stigmatizing disease and traumatizing the afflicted. Why are you down here, Maya? Why are you down here when you need to be up here? Up here with the ones who have a promising career, who listen when information goes in one ear and doesn't come out the other. You'll never be up here, Maya. You act as if the act of listening is a crime, or you would have heard me for the 666th time. Talk to your friends. Talk to your loved ones. Speaking about how we feel does not make us weak. It makes us human. It is time to end the stigma associated with mental illness. So the next time you hear mental, do not think of the madman. Think of me.